Fuck yeah! Ooh, that CGI puppetry, it's fucking great. She's getting tempted by that demon dick. Jesus, fuck! Oh my god, that's amazing.
Seldom do the sticky, gossamer strands of Spider-Man cinematic adventures intertwine with the genre of horror and its many other subgenres, but with director Sam Raimi at the helm, whose roots in horror run deep thanks to the Evil Dead trilogy, the door was wide open for those instincts to bleed into his Spider-Man films. This begs the question though, which entry could be interpreted as the scariest, or at the very least, which film has the single scariest scene? Raimi's experience with Evil Dead certainly helped shape two of our favorite villains, but I'd argue the scariest scene comes from possibly the goofiest and certainly most divisive entry in the franchise, Spider-Man 3. Now, hold on, wait. I can already see you rolling your eyes, I can hear the frustrated hyperventilation and furious thumb tapping as you rush to leave an angry, grammatically incompetent comment, but hold your self-righteous opinions and insults for SK's comment section when he inevitably stumbles upon this video. Got it? Good. Now, don't get me wrong, the first two Spider-Man films have plenty of worthy contenders for the scariest scene, but give me a moment to explain, because in a film riddled with sudden dance numbers, copious tears, and a hastily written script, this one scene, manages to be the creepiest and most unsettling moment, not just in the film, but across the entire franchise. However, before we can break down what makes it so unnerving, we need to take a step back and understand how we arrived at this point. Just 3 months before the release and critical success of Spider-Man 2 in June of 2004, a third film was already announced, with development kicking off immediately after the sequel hit theaters, and Sam Raimi's brother, Ivan, drafted an early treatment not long after Spider-Man 2 came out. At first, Raimi envisioned a very different path for his third installment, one that would pit Spider-Man against Sandman and the Vulture, while also wrapping up Harry's arc. But even from those early stages, his core intent was clear. He wanted to tell a story about Peter Parker's struggle with vengeance and forgiveness. But even from those early stages, his core intent was clear. He wanted to tell a story about Peter Parker's struggle with vengeance and forgiveness, to show that he's not as perfect as he once believed, that maybe, just maybe, some of the criminals he catches on the regular are actual people. Broken, yes, but not beyond redemption. By now, everyone knows that former Toy Biz CEO Avi Arad, not for the lack of a classier word, but the unwillingness on my part to think of one, cucked Sam Raimi into including Venom in the final product. By the way, did you know Avi Arad's first non-Marvel movie was Bratz? Of course it was. Believe it or not, somewhere along the line, Raimi did grow to appreciate the character. And thankfully for Venom and the symbiote's extensive and beloved comic history, this gave Raimi a brilliant idea. To frame Peter's narrative journey of pride, ego, revenge, and forgiveness, it would be told through a cleverly disguised metaphor for addiction. Despite the chaos behind the scenes, Raimi stayed true to his emotional through-line, exploring how revenge corrodes and forgiveness cleanses, with the extra and rather adult edge that comes from discussion of implied substance abuse like alcoholism or growing dependency. And no matter what anyone says about the final product, that vision does survive in the final film. Albeit in a questionably fractured sort of way, but it's there, okay? So, how was Raimi's vision executed? Well, I called it questionable, so let's just say that the results aren't as weak and lazy as this transition. The results are weaker and lazier than this transition. Released on May 4th of 2007, Spider-Man 3 opened to mixed to negative reviews. Many complained about the overabundance of characters, sloppy writing, dodgy CGI, Venom's treatment, Sandman's connection to Uncle Ben, and a disappointing ending. But the one aspect that received never-ending backlash was Peter's arc. The characterization and struggle of Emo Peter. Bully Maguire. I swear to God, I will kill you if you say that godforsaken name one more fucking time.
Venom's too small. Peter's emo. Harry's got lazy plot. MJ's a cheating slut. Pointless eye candy. Peter's emo. Sandman killed Uncle Ben. Why the fuck is Captain Peter's emo here? The CGI cries and dances Peter's like emo. Held hostage. Jameson's the worst he's ever got been. Vampires.
Stop.
Peter's emo. Venom's only turns emo for 5 minutes. Peter's emo.
Leave me alone.
Peter's emo. It's too long. Nerds and idiots. This movie looks a lot stranger.
Well, I guess I was wrong. This scene, fuck, nothing in the film really brings out the dread of addiction in service of the narrative. I guess the real horror comes from the fact that my mentally incompetent ass genuinely believes Spider-Man 3 could be anything more than a disjointed, inconsistent, and poorly written mess of a fucking film. I'm a goddamn moron. Quit your bitch and there's another version. Save the tears for when jobless Colin eventually gets a hold of this video. Oh my god, hope's not lost. The trailers appeared to promise a clash of wills between Peter and the symbiote, but in hindsight, the theatrical cut pulled its punches and sanded off the darker edges for accessibility, family orientation, toy sales, and overall just a wider reach. And for just over a decade, that's how things remained. Then luckily for us, in 2017, the editor's cut arrived, quietly marking the 10th anniversary of Spider-Man 3 and coinciding with Tom Holland's debut in the MCU. It was stealth released at first by accident, but soon became available for purchase on disc and VOD. This alternate version was supervised by Raimi himself and completed once again by longtime collaborator and editor Bob Murawski. It features 8 new scenes, the removal of 5, the complete reintegration of Christopher Young's original score, and a much-deserved restructuring of Act 2. Murawski's main goal
is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody.
was to restore Young's originally intended score, while the edit itself was a bonus, which aimed to return the film to a version before the maligned theatrical cut, where the characters drove the story themselves instead of external forces dictating their actions. While not the long-rumored and incorrectly addressed Spider-Man 3.1 nor the heavily campaigned Raimi cut, this version does smooth out many of the film's tonal inconsistencies, lost character beats, but most importantly, finally does justice to Peter's symbiotic addiction. Buried within this long-awaited cut is where the film's true horror was hiding all along. But before we analyze and compare Peter's behavior between both cuts, we have to look at the key behaviors of an addict. 1. Denial and rationalization. 2. Euphoria and dependency. 3. Personality shift and behavioral changes. 4. Isolation and alienation. 5. Escalation and risk. 6. Emotional numbness and detachment. 7. Loss of identity. 8. Rock bottom. So, where exactly did the theatrical cut go wrong? What makes this scene in the editor's cut land with thematic clarity compared to its trimmed down counterpart in the theatrical version? In the cut we all saw on opening day, the addiction metaphor was clearly gutted, plain as day, that's it. The symbiote wasn't portrayed as something Peter grows dependent on, something that corrodes him from the inside, but instead as a convenient power-up.
Power up!
The suit's allure wasn't tied to temptation or emotional collapse. It was reduced to a tool Peter could use when the fight got tough. And that's not just a theory. It's plain to see if you look at when Peter actually wears and removes the suit alongside the emotional and narrative context surrounding these moments. 1. The initial bonding scene. 2. Dr. Connor's scene. 3. Subway battle. 4. Mirror scene. 5. Mansion fight. 6. Church scene. Between spots 4 and 5, after the cafe scene with Harry, Peter stews in his apartment brooding in silence before retrieving the suit. And when he arrives at Harry's place, there's no jokes, there's no hesitation, just intent because he knows what's gonna come next. There's no struggle. Peter willingly uses the suit for an edge in battle. In this version of events, Peter only turns to the suit when it gives him an advantage, not comfort. Sandman's on the loose? Let's kick his sandy ass. Harry's the other guy? Let's kick his
Little ass.
And if you paid attention previously, you'll notice he only wears the suit 3 times. And one of those was the initial bonding sequence, which wasn't even by choice, meaning he actively chose the suit only twice. And for what? Strictly for battle advantage. The scene I keep coming back to, the one I've been blueballing you with, theatrically takes place right after the cafe confrontation with Harry. But one look, and you'll notice Peter's wardrobe changes between shots. What, after MJ dumped him, he returned home and changed clothes? The fuck? He changed clothes again? After Harry's confession? What the fuck is this? It's clear evidence of major alterations made to bury the addiction allegory, because in the theatrical cut, Peter doesn't really need the suit. He just uses it for fighting. The symbiote isn't even an addictive drug here, it's a cheat code. But in the editor's cut, that all changes. The tone, pacing, and score all shift to serve one purpose: to make Peter's relationship with the symbiote feel like a genuine problem, something he can't resist even as it's actively ruining him from the inside out. Let's start where curiosity turns into dependency. Not with Dr. Connors, not in battle, but in Peter's apartment. The one place that should feel safe now becomes an emotional tomb as he begins to lose his sense of self to the seductive, corrupting pull of the alien suit. And fittingly, this is where the first major divergence between the two cuts takes place. In the editor's cut, our first restored scene shows Peter sitting at his desk in quiet contemplation. Almost against his will, his gaze drifts towards the trunk that holds the suit. The moment lingers. Silent. Heavy. Before Peter subtly purses his lips. Just a quick note, a quick look into psychology reveals that pursed lips can signal several things, from suppressed anger, disapproval, or intense concentration, but in this context, it's all 3. Even when he's not wearing the suit, this early in his descent, it already has somewhat of a hold on him. The reintroduction of this one scene, no dialogue, just 20 seconds of Christopher Young's score buzzing in your head just as the suit buzzes in Peter's. It already creates a stark contrast in how the addiction metaphor is executed in this version. But thankfully, that's not all. Just like the theatrical cut, I compiled the moments where Peter wears and removes the suit in the editor's cut as well. 1. Bonding scene. 2. Dr. Connors scene. 3. Subway battle. 4. Mirror scene. 5. Temptation scene. 6. Daytime swing. 7. Mansion fight. 8. Church scene. After MJ is forced to dump Peter, he rushes home in broad daylight, which brings us to our treasured temptation scene. He stews in silence, but soon feels a pull from the trunk across the room. When he opens it, the suit is breathing, whispering, beckoning him. He puts it on to numb the pain of his heartbreak. And after putting it on, it's obvious he had no real intention of using the suit for any other reason outside of the comfort it provides. It's only when he sees Eddie's faked photo that he acts on impulse thanks to the suit. After Eddie is fired, Peter swings away in the ever sought-after daytime swinging scene, almost as an allegory for the peak of a high that only ends in a low crash. Look at Peter. Later, after discovering Harry's involvement in MJ's breakup during the cafe scene, Peter once again leaves and immediately turns to the suit for solace. He arrives at Harry's mansion later that night, implying he's been wearing it for hours. His playful, taunting behavior, like lounging in the chair he rested Norman's goddamn corpse on and smirking through their conversation, replaces the silly, melodramatic, and brooding edge of the theatrical cut. It's apparent that the suit is toying with him now, easing him into violence. When Peter rubs his chest, it's clear the symbiote's influence is steering the fight. By this point, Peter's dependency is total. The symbiote doesn't just amplify his anger, it numbs his grief, replacing the man beneath with something eerily hollow. And nowhere is that hollowness clearer than in the sequence Raimi twisted into the film's most infamous moment, the James Brown dance montage. The montage in the theatrical cut takes place after Peter exposes Eddie for his fraudulent photo, which takes on a genuinely celebratory aura. After confronting Harry and outing Eddie, it's implied that after all of his problems are dealt with by using the black suit, he feels good enough to parade around like an egotistical moron. The editor's cut, however, places the dance after Peter is led to believe he just murdered his best friend in a display of dark comedy. This scene was never meant to be taken that seriously, no matter which version you watch, but the connotation of the suit's usage shows that by this point, Peter's far too deep in the symbiote's hold. As Double Toasted pointed out just 8 years ago,
I know a lot of people got tripped up by All in Black dancing in the street with James Brown playing. That is such a very obvious and dedicated parallel to what happened in Spider-Man 2, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head scene.
This scene directly mirrors the Raindrops montage in Spider-Man 2. Both take place after a significant turning point born from Peter's loss of identity. The Raindrop montage comes from a place of wanting to better his life as Peter Parker, where the James Brown montage comes from the angle of him simply not caring what happens as long as he has the suit. Now, finally, at the end of the total filmic breakdown of the narrative between cuts, we can now take an extensive look at the temptation scene, the moment this entire script and video has been building towards. As mentioned before, the temptation scene has been extended and properly restored to its full glory. At this point in the story, Peter is at what he believes to be his lowest. After letting his ego blind him to what really matters, he practically gives up on the love of his life. The same woman he intended to marry, and the same woman he vowed to love and protect no matter at what cost, for an extraterrestrial parasite that feeds on his self-inflicted pain, grief, and isolation. From start to finish, this scene lasts for only around 80 whole seconds, with no dialogue or computer-generated imagery. This becomes the most tense and story-driven scene in the editor's cut. It consists of just 5 shots, ironically matching the number of restored scenes that flesh out Peter's struggle. It's one of the only scenes in the film that feels afraid to move but takes slow, deep, and methodical breaths, much like the suit breathing in the trunk. As Christopher Young's score creeps in and begins to swell, the shot focused on Peter's face slowly twists from a cautious glare into an excited and giddy grin. The edges of the frame begin to envelop in darkness, symbolizing that the symbiote finally has Peter in his full grasp. As I pointed out in a previous video, this also contains the only example of the symbiote genuinely speaking to Peter in quiet and inviting whispers. Raimi and Young create a suffocating tension, that kind that makes the audience hold their breath with him. It's the film's purest representation of temptation, unfolding not through action, but surrender. If this had been the only scene restored, all 5 shots, all 80 seconds, I think it would be enough to hammer home Raimi's original intention to turn the black suit from an advantage into a real and very human struggle with one's self-worth and loss of identity to corruption. Psychologically, this is the point of relapse. The symbiote doesn't leap onto Peter, it's invited. His grin isn't joy or power, it's relief. Relief that he no longer has to resist. The very traits of addiction laid out earlier, denial, craving, dependency, loss of control, all converge right here. Raimi visualizes the exact moment Peter stops fighting the current and lets it take him. The absence of dialogue makes this scene haunting. There's no one for Peter to talk to, no moral voice to guide him, only the echo of his own desire. The silence becomes oppressive, almost a vacuum where the sound of the score is the only thing left, like the hum of temptation in Peter's head. Each second drags like a breath he can't release, and by holding the shot so long, Raimi forces us to watch Peter surrender to his weakness in real time. The creeping darkness isn't just a visual flourish, it's the comfort of corruption. The shadows that fill the frame represent a warped safety, a place where pain no longer hurts. In addiction terms, this is the comfort zone, where numbness becomes home. Look at Peter's expression. The tension leaves his eyes, his face loosens, and his lips curl upwards. It's almost euphoric, yet beneath that euphoria is something hollow. A man giving up on the last piece of himself to something that promises control but only delivers dependency. It's not empowerment, it's escape. What makes the editor's cut version so powerful is that it restores the pacing, the patience. The theatrical cut robbed this moment of its suffocating dread. In the faster edit, this transformation feels like a cool power-up. In this cut, it's a relapse. The horror comes from realizing Peter is not being overtaken by something alien, he's allowing it. He's even welcoming it into his hands. By the end of this scene, the symbiote no longer feels like an external force, it feels earned, the natural consequence of everything Peter has buried. Raimi understood that the true horror of addiction isn't losing control, it's wanting to. When that grin finally settles on his face, it's not triumph, it's resignation. Relief that he no longer has to feel. And in that 80-second stretch, no words, no CGI, no escape, Spider-Man 3 becomes a subtle but psychological horror film.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. And fuck you, I'm
Fuck off!